messing around.
I genuinely did not know this was your first time on the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have been doing this for a minute now, right?
For a minute, yeah. We're about halfway through the series, and I don't know why. I think because I was like, oh, there's like the whole Coach season. And in my brain, I was like, oh, I guess that's when we're going to like have Damon on a bunch. It'd be great. And then it's the Prince episode. I'm like, there's no one better to do the Prince episode than with Damon.
Well,
and then Joelle, our producer, was like, it's Damon's first time. I was like, what?
Prince would have been better to do it than Damon.
You said what?
No, I said Prince would have been a better choice.
I mean, for
Damon.
sure. For sure.
Yeah, we could.
No, I'm kidding. That's terrible. That's terrible.
I wonder if he would have done it. I bet you.
He for sure would have. With you, he for sure.
Let's just get it out there, Damon. What do you mean by that? What do you
I'm not going to expound.
In this episode, Jess and Cece get invited to a party being thrown by Prince. That's right, folks. We are reviewing the Prince episode. Now, here's the thing. After Nick awkwardly and for the first time tells Jess he loves her as she's leaving, and she gives him the good old finger guns, the boys must sneak into the party so Nick can take back the I love you.
Rational. Very rational.
Yeah, very rational. Directed by Fred Goss, written by David Feeney and Rob Rosell.
Imagine that. No pressure, man. Could you just write an episode for Prince that's going to air after the Super Bowl?
That's crazy.
Wow.
Could you direct it? I'd be like, I don't think I can.
Like, no,
I don't
good.
feel well. That's so much pressure.
Such
a good episode. You know what's crazy is I sent it to you guys. I dug up the table draft, production draft, and then there was a billion other versions, you know, like all the pages that were added. Mm-hmm. And here's what's crazy. And then I read it and like kind of like watched along. Very little changes. It was almost 99% word perfect, which as we have gone and recapped the series, that doesn't happen very often. Usually there's a big jump between table and production draft, and then the jokes that end up on the screen because there was so much improv and all those moments. But I think there was so much pressure, which surprised me. I thought there'd be so much difference, but there was so much pressure, I think, on this episode that every single word had to be approved, had to be looked at 10,000 times, and had to be said as is because of all the eyeballs and all the money that was spent on this episode.
Is it true that they had to, and this is what I heard, that Prince had to approve the scripts? Because I knew he had to approve wardrobe and he had to approve the set design and all that stuff. But the script, do you think he had anything to do with that? Because I'm assuming that they had at some point written him like with assless chaps on. It's just like cheeks out. And then he was like either yay or nay. You know what I mean?
You know what's true? Actually, the things that changed were not what Prince said, but how he said them. Those were the things that changed. So like when he does, we'll get to all this, but when he does like the Jess makeover, in all the script versions, it's like hip tip number 1, hip tip number 2. And then that's not in the show. He just would give her the advice. I think he's like, it's not hip to say hip tip. I'm not doing it.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I'd be like,
they were just like, he was like, no. There was another moment they had written where Prince was supposed to walk in, and that's when they're sitting on the bench, and this is the first time they see him, Nick and Jess, and he was supposed to say something like, oh, hey, can you guys, everybody's throwing in $5 for the keg. And then he's like, just kidding. I'm rich. I'm Prince. Everything's free. And then he did that like, oh, I didn't give you a moment just to, scream or whatever, to freak out. And then that changed. I think he was like, I'm not going to come out and joke about asking people for money. So I think he probably made some tweaks, but the rest of us and the words we said were pretty much verbatim, except for, and this launches us right into the episode, is right at the beginning when you guys are watching the football game and Max keeps grabbing Jake's leg. And then you hear Jake go like, stop, man. Stop. Every single time we cheer, stop touching my leg. Like, and then you hear him off camera go like, seriously, stop. And then they cut back, and out of nowhere, Damon, you just reach over and grab Jake's leg, and he gives you a look and slaps your hand off. That's the only part that wasn't in the script. That was the only part of the whole episode that was improvised, was just messing with Jake and annoying him and touching him when he's saying, please don't touch my body.
Yeah, it's definitely Max initiated that for sure.
Yes, yeah.
David, I felt like you had the most fun on this show doing stuff like that as opposed to just reading the dialogue.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, to this day, I find it hard to, like, even if it's really good dialogue, my mind wants to say something else all the time. And so, unless it moves the actual story, I'm probably going to say something that's like in the area of it, but not really.
You find it hard to do on your show now because it's multicam, or is
yeah. I mean, I do it. You know, I've grown to be able to do it, but before it was just like, is it ADD? I don't know what the hell it was.
Can I tell you what I think it is?
Mm-hmm. What?
I think you just really like making people laugh, and you can't help it. And so I think you just like to make people laugh, because there's like that infamous story on New Girl of where for no reason you're off camera, you just turned around and showed everybody your ass.
Oh, that was literally, I was in front of a couple of people, but behind the couch, so I don't think the ladies could see it.
No.
And I think Max were behind me, or was it Lamorne? I don't know who was behind me, but there were a couple people behind me. We just walked, and I had my ass out. I mean, for no reason. It was just to see if they could get through the scene. But like, and I was
they didn't.
I flexed my butt a little bit, like I knew they saw that.
Yeah, they didn't. I think you just love making people laugh, and we all know what's on the page.
Immature.
I think that's what it is. I think that's part of the
best.
genius. That's part of the genius. People don't think in that way, and by you thinking in that way, that's why you're so successful.
Yeah.
And also, I think you might think that you're better than all the writers.
Depends. It depends, because sometimes I do, but then sometimes like, it will be unnecessary for me to improvise. Like, I'm like, this is a good joke, and then I still try and say something.
Ooh, I will say that about this episode. It's funny. I said the only part that I could see that was fully improvised and was so funny is the Max repeatedly touching Jake. Like, that's the opening of the whole Prince episode, by the way. They kept that improv in. But the other part is still part of that opening scene, which is how to pronounce the word panties is not in any script. Now, look, it could have been walked in as like an alter from the writers or something, but it feels like something that would have just naturally happened with you guys of like, wait, how did you say it? Say it again. That's not how we say it.
He goes, black people say it. We say it like, take off them panties. Oh my god!
Because you see Jake smirking it, because you know how he can't do it, no matter how much he's gonna try.
I had this moment happen to me literally 2 weeks ago. I was in Cabo with some friends, right? And you guys know Cord Overstreet, right?
Uh-huh.
So Cord, he's on Glee, and we were all sitting. We all rented this house together in Mexico, and his girlfriend's there, and I want to go do laundry, right? And they're out, and so I go to there's clothes in the dryer, because now it's time to dry my clothes, and there are clothes in the dryer, and they're just sitting there, and I go to grab them because I see his like stuff, so I know they're his, but in there are panties, and so I like put them back down, and I had to go and like call him and say, hey, Cord, listen, there's your girl's like underwear are in the dryer, and he's like, dude, it's fine. You can take them out. I was like, yeah, but I'm trying to get him so I don't touch him. You know what I mean? He's like, well, if you're going to make it awkward, then I was like, nah, okay.
Too late.
I don't know why. I was like, oh, this is all right. So I just lay him gently on their bed. I didn't like organize them or anything. Because what would have been, like if this were like my boys' clothes.
Yeah.
I would have like separated them for them and set them down. I wouldn't have just threw them in a bunch. But because
that's so sweet, by the way.
Their panties, it's like you just put them and place them in their own area.
Yes. Separate.
Which is more perverted now. It's like
I'm like, Oh man,
It's funny to me that in this whole Prince episode, that clip of like, what do you do when you're with your, a guy friend and their girlfriend's panties are in the dryer? I guess it's a big roommate life out there in the world. And so this is like a real situation. And that clip is like viral. It goes everywhere, which I didn't realize about like the only thing to do now is to get a stick. We're all together. It's all together, so you're not alone being weird with the panties. And we're just gonna get them out.
Which is so weird. I'm like, why didn't Nick just go and get them himself?
I don't. Well, yeah, I don't know.
He takes them things off all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, they clean now. Like, at least they.
Well, it's also like the button of that scene is when Jess goes, "Those aren't my panties."
Yes.
It's the worst even then.
Whose panties are
Whose panties are they?
Yeah,
we don't know. We don't know. Now, let's fast forward a little bit. We're holding the panties. That you guys come in and you say.
Now, you remember early on Instagram when they did the face swap of us holding the panties?
Yes.
So weird.
It was so strange.
They had Max's face on my face. They had, I think, Nick was your face. They switched everybody's faces, and it looked really strange, but it cracked me up. All right.
Yeah.
You know what's weird when they do the
remember
face
that
swap?
photo.
Oh, you tell me.
I was gonna say I remember that photo more than I remember the OG photo.
Absolutely.
Nothing I felt like messed with your head more of thinking that you're like, I'm a pretty attractive person. I feel good about me until face swap came along and you're like, oh God, this does not work unless everything is exactly as it is on my body.
Also,
Jenna, you look terrible as Michael
ADR
Jordan.
makes you really ugly.
ADR?
Yeah, you just be frozen like, and you walk in, you're like, what the fuck?
ADR would be, sometimes I was like, are they mad at me?
Yeah.
Because like I would walk in, I was like, that's really? You can't go back like 1/2 a second? Cool. Thanks so much. I'm going to give it my all, you guys.
Okay, so we realize that the girls have been invited to a Prince party.
Yeah.
Which is mind-blowing. You don't just, I mean, unless you're a celebrity, like people in the Hollywood circles would always have these stories about going to a Prince party, like a big jam session or something like that. But it's happening to two regular old folks.
What's interesting, there was a Schmidt, you know, when he comes in, he's like, dearly beloved, and he does his whole thing. There's a whole chunk of that was dropped where he talks about making it. And he's like, everybody has their moment, like going to a Prince party. And then there's like a P. Diddy thing where he's like, you get to go to, and it dropped. It was in every version of the script. It didn't make the show. And I was like, ooh, they were ahead of their time knowing to not have that in this episode.
No, but you know what this says to me? It says to me because Rob Rosell wrote it. That means Rob Rosell, he knew about the Diddy parties.
He knew about the freak-offs.
He knew about the freak-offs.
Somebody knew something because all of a sudden it was not there.
Rob was there.
Big Rob has some.
Why did you drop that joke?
He's like, I can't tell on me and Liz.
Mind you, there was a lot dropped. There was a ton of stuff that was in the loft that happened. There was a whole. I'm trying. It was a whole thing where you guys had to convince Nick to go, which I'm sure we shot. But there was a whole thing where Nick's like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go to this party. You can't make me go to the party. I won't go. And then you're like, and then Winston's like, just call her. If it got weird, just call her. And then you guys slap the phone out of his hand because you're trying to all go to the Prince party. And it just hard cuts to like, you guys are in the car being there. But there was a whole scene.
The interesting thing about the car being there, do you remember Damon, do you remember the argument that it was like a bit of a disagreement between them and Video Village telling us what to say? Because out of the blue, it almost felt like we had to do this Ford commercial.
Yeah.
It wasn't out of the blue. It was a legit Ford commercial. And then they were telling us like the lines that we're supposed to, and they were just like, it almost had nothing to do with the show. Like, it was an overt commercial. It was just like, and then they didn't even tell us until we were in the car going, we're going to be doing it. I remember that. And I remember Jake was like not having it.
No. Jake was like, "Well, hold on. Like, if I got to do this Ford commercial,
yeah, are we getting paid for this?
Are we getting paid?
We'll just say we were gonna say.
They're like, no.
Well, there's that mileage thing about getting turned on my mileage, right? That was like a big part of it, and that was another little improv moment, I think, where it was. They were like, "Well, when did it happen?" And then because I think you guys didn't want to talk about mileage, so then you guys just went in with the joke, and then you were like, "I don't know. I just remember it was a Thursday."
Yeah. I definitely remember that. Ford was I remember I had Schmidt had a car he called the Foscape or something like that, the Ford Escape. It was like all kinds of Ford references on this show.
Well, then Jess and Cece did the big model one where Jess had to, I was like, Cece's so hungover. And so Jess goes to the car show. That's the modeling job. Cece, we did a bunch. Ford paid for a lot of New Girl. And this was a very expensive episode. So they wanted a full blown commercial placed in the middle of it. And that was on you guys that day.
Do we know how on average, how expensive were New Girl episodes? $2 million?
I don't know.
I think a little less, but I know the Prince episodes are most expensive.
Oh, okay.
For sure.
And it was over 2. It was over 2 million, but I think it was a little bit less than 2 million.
Oh, okay.
And we had there's so many extras. I'm sure.
Yeah, and locations and all that kind of.
Yeah, and Zoe and like all those things.
There were so many people that were so expensive. I wonder what Prince wanted.
But I remember there was a moment we should we talk about it?
We're gonna get there, you guys. We're gonna get to the story. We'll get there.
There was this moment where Nick and we did a flashback to us in high school doing a Prince, like dressed up like Prince and performing. I don't know what it was. I think I talked about this on the podcast before. I don't know what it was. I was so depressed during that moment. I was depressed for a little bit, but it was like random, and I didn't understand why I was. And I just remember going, "Oh, this is a funny bit. This is going to be so stupid and silly." But I couldn't get through it. Usually, I can't get through moments like one-on-one, whether it's me or Jake or something like that, because he's always improvising, and I can't get through it because I'm laughing too much. This one was weird. I couldn't get through it because I was so sad, and I don't know why. It was a very
you just remember that day or this episode or that
I remember
scene?
That it was that episode, but that day in particular was strange because it was like I remember reading it and laughing, going like, "This is gonna be funny," and then doing it and not giving a shit about being there at all. I was like, "Get me the fuck out of here."
Some days it be like that, man.
Yeah. I remember there was so much pressure on this episode because I'll never forget like how many billions of dresses they had me try on to get to that gold dress, right? And they had this whole palette going of all the different colors. It was so much like the leather jacket when we come in and we're like, it's going to a Prince party. I had to wear, there's 9,000 leather jackets they went through. Like there was so much pressure on every single detail. It makes sense that you would just kind of feel like this it's fun, but everybody's looking.
I have a question. Do you think that Prince had anything to do with your outfits?
Not my outfits. No, it didn't have anything to do with my outfits.
Because he dresses his ladies.
I've heard that.
He's notorious for that.
I've heard that. No.
So you don't nothing to do. Oh, okay.
No, it had a lot to do with. I think there was a big conversation of when he gets to dress Zoe, like when he got to dress Jess. He was very involved, I think, with all of those clothes and that selection because it was going to be a reflection of what Prince would dress her in. I think that was like a big thing. I will tell you something really funny is that, and I can get into this story later, but Prince and I ended up becoming very good friends, really, really good friends. And he saw the promo ad, the promo ad where you and Jake are dressed up in that flashback. That was like, one of the big ads. It was like the Prince episode and Jake, and he sent me an email and he just said, "How come Jake looks like my Aunt Helen?" Which really made me laugh. I was rereading all the emails Prince sent me over the years, and that was one of the emails. He's so funny. Because it's obviously Jake's supposed to look like him. And he's like, why does Jake look like my Aunt Helen? I don't know if he has an Aunt Helen, if he was just trying to be funny, but man, it made me laugh last night when I saw that email.
Hannah, is it true that his emails looked like a ransom note? Like different fonts and colors?
Yeah, some of them did, yeah. Yeah, we were basically pen pals for years. We met in that December 2013, and he passed in 2016. And then, yeah, we just we wrote to each other for years. And some of the funniest stuff, but that was one of the funniest emails. Can you imagine getting dressed up like Prince and thinking I think I've nailed it. This is going to be great for the show. And Prince himself weighs in and is like, you just look like my crazy auntie.
Hannah, would you let your husband read those emails without you being in the room?
Yes. Yeah, we became friends. We became really good friends. I love Prince.
I kidding. Okay, let's dive back in. Hannah, where are we at?
You guys are in a car commercial.
Okay, we're done with the car commercial. So we're back. So we're now inside the party, right? Here's my favorite. We're outside the party. Here's one of my favorite moments. Because it wasn't all the time that they let us do bits together, Damon and I.
Yeah.
Because then they would have had to air this episode on BET. No, we don't have a deal with BET. You can't have these two dudes doing scenes together all the time. And so we're doing the fire and ice thing. I forgot about what our backstory was with the fire and ice thing. Mm-hmm. But you remember when you and I go up and we start acting like we're old war buddies?
He didn't make it.
Yeah, he didn't make it. I thought about that, and I was like, yo, that would work.
Yeah.
That would work, man.
I feel like we didn't even really practice that. I feel like we just did it on the day, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Warm water, all that. It just all felt like... I don't know. It felt like
the fire and ice thing, the warm water thing was scripted, but the fire and ice exchange was really supposed to be about you were surrounded by Somali pirates and then had to swim for miles. Yeah, the real scripted version of this was very different. No one named Freddie. None of that happened. Was not scripted. Again, I don't know if that was a walked-in story or if you guys just came up with that story because that's not what was in the script.
I think we came up with that because Freddie is always the name that I go to, and I improvise. I go, Freddie, ready, Freddie. I always go to Ready Freddie.
That was so much fun. Like every time I go do stand up, like people always talk about fire and ice.
Yeah.
So I do stand up. And this show's so damn famous. I forgot. I think I told Lamorne this, that I always have to start off my shows with like 10 minutes of just new real Q&As essentially.
Really?
Yeah, and I talk about like my relationships with all you guys and it's fun, but it gets everything out so I can just do my show.
So people not screaming.
People be yelling stuff out and
oh wow.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. It's really fun, but it's annoying. Because people keep discovering the show. You know, you have like every time I think my crowd is going to age with me, I have like a whole new, group of youngsters coming in. I'm thankful for, but it's
the show that keeps on giving.
Yeah,
the show that keeps on giving.
When Nick and Schmidt tried to do ham and cheese, I don't know if I have laughed that hard in a long time. The commitment that Jake has to the bit and watching Max not go big at all, just get so like, this is on me. He clearly doesn't know what we're doing. He doesn't understand anything. It's fine. It gets so sad that he didn't prep his boy enough, as opposed to angry, is the funniest way to play that scene. It made me laugh so hard. You don't know what we're doing. You just don't know what we're doing.
I love that he said that. He blamed Schmidt. He goes, this man put my mom in prison in the desert. Or something like that. It's so stupid.
Ham and cheese.
Oh my gosh, I love the Trojan horse situation when he gets in. That right there is something I've definitely done before.
You've Trojan horsed in?
Oh yeah, you show up to a party and now this is back in those club days when you like really wanted to go to a club and get a table and do that, and you didn't know the bouncer, you didn't know the promoter or whatever, and you got to.
I can't relate to these stories, you guys. I'm so
I know
sorry.
you can't.
Talk amongst yourselves. It's fine.
You and Kanye, we get it. You and Baron Davis, you and Prince, we know, Hannah.
All my friend-zoned friends. Keep going. Got such nice friends.
You never got me. Hannah only take me to like dive bars.
Hannah, wait, you're friends with Baron?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. I went to high school with him.
Went to Crossroads? I didn't know that Baron went to Crossroads.
Yeah,
he's the nicest.
Fancy school. But that's what I would do. I would wait till a group of girls are going in, and I would go, I'm buying a table. And they would go, oh, okay, cool. And I'm like, y'all with me? And they're like, okay. And then we'll all just like roll in together. And then I would peace out, go to the bar, buy one drink for myself. And go home alone. Ooh, I did it right. All right, let's go to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, Hannah is going to not tell us about the bear. And we are black. What'd you say?
Yeah, did you say back or?
I said we're back. I said we are back. We are back.
You said black.
I heard.
I mean, we are.
Too.
I mean, yes, but I didn't know if that's
not Hannah though.
No, you are. Yeah.
By proxy, Hannah's by proxy. She got a lot of black friends.
Both of us.
Hannah was raised.
They're all here.
So we're on the topic of the I love you and your partner not saying I love you back, right? Nick does that in the beginning, and now it's all awkward. Now it's all weird. Goes to the party. Here we are. He finds Jess at the party. Jess says that she has something important to tell Nick, but she can't say it. Like she's like trying to say it, but she can't say I love you. She has a panic attack, and then she passes out.
Yeah, she just faints.
And he even mentions it later, like that's doubly bad. Like what? Like I don't know what's worse, the finger pointing or you blacking out.
Yeah, one's an awkward response. The other is your body just shutting down at the thought of it. It's worse.
Yeah. That's worse because that's emotional right there.
Yeah,
that's emotional.
That's survival right now. Your body's trying to survive. Like what it considers to be the worst thing ever is what it feels like.
Damon, do you and your wife say I love you?
Yeah, a few times over the years.
Yeah, I would imagine you gotta keep her happy, right?
Just a couple times, just a couple I love yous.
Yeah, we did. I mean, my family is just the most lovey-dovey people. Like her family is not really. They don't really like say I love you to each other. But I've gotten her in the habit of saying it. Because you never know. You never know what's gonna happen. So I just like to say it before I leave. And
never heard you. I'm friends with Marlon. I'm friends with a few people in your family.
Mm-hmm.
Never, ever, has any one of you ever said "I love you" to me, and that
I love you, Lamorne.
Thank you, Hannah. But you're not Hannah.
I give you hugs and kisses, which is kind of the same.
You what?
Kisses right there.
Those aren't kisses.
Up and down your neck.
I'm a do Lamorne. I love you and your Emmy. You love that.
I can't.
Those aren't kisses. Those are lip grazes. We talked about that. Those are lip drags.
It's worse. It's worse. It's better to have accidental kiss on the neck than just like a lip brush up the neck. That's so much worse. Ew.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So when Jess wakes back up, Nick tells her that he shouldn't have said I love you. It was an accident and that he wants to take it back. And that's when we discover this whole time Schmidt has not been inside of this party because he didn't handle himself correctly at the door. This man is pushing through the bushes trying to get in. And I love the fact that when he lands, he's got a Frisbee in his hand. And he's like, this man does not know how to play Frisbee.
Prince is terrible at Frisbee. There's 10 of them up there.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get to, it's crazy to think you watch half the episode and you never see Prince, and then it's all Prince. So there's a whole storyline that had to be taken out of this episode, which also impacted casting and all sorts of things. So there was the whole Schmidt storyline of this can't be the finish line. Like, this can't be my final circle of friends. This can't be like what a good night out looks like for me most days of the week when I go out with you guys. I need to level up. This is going to be my chance. I'm going to go to a Prince party. I'm going to meet somebody that's going to change my life. And so in the first draft of the script, when he's the only one left outside of the party, they had Cindy Crawford be the person. And they have a genuine connection. And then she gets in the party and she's like, if you find me, like if you get in, come find me. So he's got this like drive for Cindy Crawford. In another version, it was Miranda Kerr. Yeah. And then it was the beautiful models that ended up being there that you guys talked to, I think. Alessandra Ambrosia.
Oh, yes.
And Anna, the other
Beatrice
beautiful model.
Barros.
Beatrice?
Yes.
Yeah, Beatrice. Yeah.
Those gorgeous. But they were supposed to be part of the Schmidt storyline of him getting in and meeting these famous women and this whole thing. And then what ended up happening is that then they were going to do the Kardashians.
There we go.
And that's who was going to then level up his whole game. So we had this massive storyline, and it even gets set up back in the loft, which had to be cut, which was, well, what are you going to do when you meet these famous people or someone famous that's going to get your, he was going to do a fragrance with like the shape of the bottle was going to be the shape of his body, and it was going to be called Whiff. Whiff. And so that was like the big storyline. And then the Kardashians were he's going to be talking to Kris Jenner and he was going to get to pitch it. And it was going to be this huge moment. And then he would look over and see Cece hanging out and playing a game at the bar. And then he had to kind of like make a decision. But as the story goes, when Prince showed up that day and saw that the Kardashians were going to be part of the episode, they made different choices around the Kardashians being in the episode. And so what I realized in watching the show, I was like, oh, they had to then go back through everything they shot and somehow make Schmidt's story make sense.
Yes.
Right?
So I remember it a little different.
Say, yeah.
I don't know if this is true, but I remember because was just leaving the makeup trailer, and then the Kardashian ladies were coming into the makeup trailer. He's like, hi. I'm getting dressed. And they were going over their lines and stuff. Like, they have their little signs in there, and it's like, hey, nice party, or whatever. And then I hear, because Prince is on the way, I hear Prince go, he said, I would never have a Kardashian at one of my parties. And they were like, whoa! And then they ushered the Kardashians out, put them in the cart, sent them away. Like, they were just like, oh, I didn't know I thought we were good. And just kicked them out. And then scratched out all their names from all the sides.
No, they took them. You don't remember? They ran around and grabbed all the sides and put them basically, like, I don't know what, they incinerated them or something. Like, they were gone. And they had to reprint everybody's side so there was no evidence. And so they could be like, never happened.
You know what's so funny about this is that we all have different accounts of this story.
Okay.
Oh, okay. What's
I have
yours?
I have a completely different one.
Well,
my account, I again don't know if this is true. I don't know why I feel this way, but I've heard this version, or maybe this is the version. And I
like how yours is a feeling. We're having telling stories like, here's how I feel about
no, because I'm trying to remember how I came to this conclusion of this being the story. I remember people being on set. And a lot of extras are there. And then we were shooting in a particular area. Max was already filming with them.
Oh.
He was already filming them. And Prince came a little early and sat down in Video Village, saw them on the monitor.
Oh, I think.
And then said, what are they doing here? And it was like, oh, it's the Prince party, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, the Kardashians would never be invited to a Prince party. And they called cut. And they were like, thank you, we got it. Because slightly after that, do you remember where Max is talking to Damaris and the other actress, I forget her name, but Damaris is a part of Prince's squad.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Prince then comes to me and was like, "Hey, Lamorne." He was like, Damaris. He's like, Damaris doesn't act. Is there any way you could teach her how to look surprised? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, she comes, she sees me on the stage, and she gets excited. She gets surprised that Prince is there. So, can you show her how to act surprised? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I'm thinking I'm gonna pull her to a corner and do it. And he sits down and he goes, do it right here. And he sits down and watches me instruct her on how to act surprised. And he was giddy and excited in that moment. And I'm almost positive this is
what did you do?
My version
did you tell her how to feel it, or did you just go did you stage mom her and give her a surprise face?
I just gave her a surprise. I just started doing a bit. I asked her first. I was like, how would you see Prince? How would you act? And
was I around? Were we around?
Yes.
What happened?
Yeah, yes. You were there.
Yeah.
Because you told a story. Yes, you told me this story about how your dad once was invited to perform for Prince.
Yes.
So, because I remember sitting there like going, I just performed for Prince, and I was like, I don't, so that's why that version of the story is resonating more with me, as if they had already started shooting.
Yeah.
I wasn't there that day, so I don't know. I just remember coming in later that night, and they were just running around making sure that no sides, which is just like the small version of the script that everybody kind of gets, but there was no sides laying around that had like the old version that had the Kardashians on it. But I don't know if they crossed paths. That's crazy if they crossed paths.
That's wild.
I don't know. Isn't that weird to think that we don't know?
That would be wild.
I just remember my mouth dropping because when I found that they had to go, because I was like, because I know Chloe. I've known Chloe since we were young.
Really?
Damn. Yeah.
Really?
Not like
yeah, that's wild.
No.
I saw Kim the other day when I was in Cabo. I saw Kim.
We were
the same. Yeah, and we had a little bit of a conversation. And let me tell you something. That woman is glorious.
She's very pretty. Our kids go to school together, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's how you know we getting old. Y'all like, my kids go to school together. A bunch of old people and other old people. That old bitch, nice. Let me get my old ass out there on the dance floor.
The carpool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, where are we, Hannah? You're off topic right now.
I'm just talking about how they had to change all of Schmidt's storyline to make it all work. And you're right. Then they needed someone for Schmidt to talk to. So they had to scramble people up quickly. And so I guess they went to Prince's entourage and found, because he's surrounded by beautiful women, and to be like, could we?
I mean, he had enough people. He showed
ladies?
up. He showed up with like 50 people, all dressed in tassels and zippers, looking like.
Well, because they were all going to perform on the stage, right? Yeah. They were all performing with him, and then he had all of his friends and everybody there. So it was, we had people to pull from, but they had to make sense now, all of a sudden, of what is Schmidt doing, because there was a whole thing, and it was set up in the beginning because they were like, he's like, I'm going to get in the party, I'm going to meet these famous people, and they were like, how are you going to get in? He's going to be like, I'm going to say, I'm Cece Parikh. And I think it was Damon in the script goes like, what do you mean you're Cece Parikh? And he's like, it's Charlie Parikh. And when he meets Kris Jenner, she goes, so what's your name? And he's so dumbfounded because she's like the goddess of making people into like an amazing brand that he's like, Charlie Parikh. That he says it even when he's in the party. But all of that had to go. And so they had to make sense. And I mean, the genius of editors of trying to like make sense of it when you have a whole storyline drop out because Prince doesn't want the Kardashians there.
I have a question. Did Prince have, correct me if I'm wrong, there were a couple of rules like beforehand. Before meeting him, it was like, don't look at him, don't talk to him, don't ask for autograph or pictures or something like that. I remember him coming in for the first time and me not wanting to look at him, and he was like, it's okay, Damon, you can look at me.
Did he say that?
Yeah. I was like, oh, thank God. Because I was just like, kind of like, I didn't know what to do. That afro, he had like the afro and the light up shoes. Remember that?
The light up shoes and the light up cane.
Yeah.
I don't remember there being rules, but I do remember like the vibe, and it was talked about, which was like, just like everybody be like, cool, man. And which maybe became like, don't don't stare at him, and like, maybe don't like ask for autographs. Or was it
There
rules?
was a memo. There was a memo. It was like, leave your phones in your trailer.
Oh, yeah, phones for sure. Okay.
No pictures. I just remember being no phones and no pictures, no autographs. That's what I remember.
Okay.
And he hates photos.
Yeah.
He hates photos. I remember being at I went to the rap party. And I don't know if anybody, I think I was was that the only cast member who went?
No, I think everybody went to the rap. I just didn't go.
No. Zoe didn't go. Jake didn't go. Max didn't go.
I went too.
I don't know.
It was at the Peterson Museum. It was at the big car museum.
We took pictures together. Me, you, Hannah. We have like the...
Oh, no. So here's what happened. If we're going to jump to the rap party, I can jump to the rap party. This episode, recap, you guys, is wild like the actual episode itself. I went to the rap party. But I have to get into the story of like my friendship with Prince to make sense, because I don't want things being pulled out of context, because that's what happened.
Before you do, let me just finish.
Prince.
Before you do, let me just quickly, because I want to hear your story, but I just want to quickly finish the rest of my point on this one.
Yeah.
He's at the rap party, and people are taking photos of him, and his security had this little light thing that was blocking the photos, so people couldn't actually take pictures. And I asked him, I was like, "Hey man," I was like, "You gonna stay for the party?" Because he had just walked in, and he looks around and he goes, "Goodness no," and then leaves.
All right, you guys. This Prince episode has so much going on, and we did not want to not tell you everything, so it's going to be a two-parter. So come back next week. We will have more Prince stories, and of course, more Damon Wayans Jr. weighing in, telling you what it's all about. See you next week.
That's right. Peace.
That was The Mess Around, an iHeartMedia production.
Our executive producer is Joelle Monique. Our senior producer is Abu Zafar. Bei Wang provided engineering and editing services.
Additional production from Daniel Goodman, Wendy Heisler, and Kyle Chevron. Our theme song was written and composed by Ronald Jukebox Jackson.
Catch you next time.
Bye.